As Daria explained, that I'm from the KPTU, and we are quite busy these days since from last week because our affiliate, the Truckers Solidarity Division, is on strike for winning safe race system. So yeah, I'll do my best. Let me explain a little bit about history of privatization in Korea. We have over 30 years of privatization history in Korea. Like regardless of which party the president comes from, either from conservative or liberal, they are all pro-market and pro-corporate privateers. So from 1993 until now on, the government have been attempted to privatize public services using different types of privatization. Like during the first civil government from 1993 to 1997, the government brought the definition of globalization in Korea. And the president back then announced that it would bring a competitive system to the public sector. And the government also established privatization measure promoting committee to privatize public corporations. As a result of the committee, 8 public corporations out of 68 sold out to private sector. And then we went through IMF bailout from 1997 to 2001. And during the time we had a liberal government. But, since we are under IMF bailout, that was the time that the Korean government brought aggressive neoliberal policy in the public sector. So that was time when the government brought privatization program in earnest. So they attempt to privatize power generation sector and many other public corporate. They try to also sell out many public corporations in the name of reduction of government's debt. So yeah, that was the first era of aggressive privatization program began in Korea. From 2002 to 2007, we also had a liberal government, and this is the only government that it didn't officially announce or officially adopt privatization as the government policy.
Sunghee, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm just wondering, do you want us to advance the presentation? Because for some reason we see the opening screen, but I guess you would want to advance or not, because you're talking about the content already.
You cannot see the screen? You cannot see the PPT?
We can, but we only see the first slide. Do you want us to advance?
Oh, yes. Could you please?
Yeah, okay. We will set it up and you can tell my colleague when you want the next slide. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Please go on. Sorry for the interruption.
Okay. So from 2000 to 2007, we had a liberal government, and it kind of used the public sector to create more jobs. Instead, the government, they could you go to the page 3? Yes. So from 2002 to 2007, the government rather focused on improving governance structure in the public sector. So that was the time the government didn't do much about privatization in the privatization in the public sector, but this government, they cut many like social insurance benefits, such as public pension system. So that was the time when the public pension system got weaker. After that, we have 2 terms of conservative government from 2008 to 2017. And that was the second time that the government attempted aggressive privatization program in the public sector, using new public management theory. So they introduced competition system in the public sector. So they announced that they would privatize airports and gas and electricity and healthcare and water, basically everything in the public sector. But after the government announced the privatization program to the public, they had to face mass mobilization from the trade union and huge resistance from the public. So they kind of failed to privatize all the public sector they planned to privatize, but they kind of partially succeeded to privatize some of the public services. And after that, until this May, we had a liberal government, and the government used the idea of innovation and recovery of public funds to promote privatization policy in the public sector. But the difference between conservative government and the liberal government is like softer version of conservative government in Korea. So they did the same thing as the conservative government did, but in a more complex and hidden ways. So it's really hard to see whether the government really promotes privatization program in the public sector or not, unless you keep watching them closely. So that's the difference between conservative government and the liberal government. And during the time from 2017 to 2022, the government introduced zero irregular jobs in the public sector policy, because the precarious jobs were a very big issue in Korea, in particular in the public sector, because during the previous government, they kind of splitted public services function-based for privatization. So like, for example, like railway service, the management, like public corporation is managing and operating the railway service, but the railway service public corporation, they contracted out station management and cleaning service and ticketing and and so on, and the customer service and so on. So that's how they promoted privatization. As a result of those privatization program, we ended up having too many irregular workers in the public sector. That's why the Moon Jae-in government, the former government, they had to introduce some kind of measures to reduce irregular jobs in the public sector. However, when they promoted the zero irregular jobs in the public sector policy, most of public corporation, they brought back, they took outsourced service into public corporation, but they didn't hire those irregular workers directly. Rather, they established subsidiary companies in the public corporations. So technically, they are not irregular workers in the public sector, but they still have contract workers with indefinite contract with a subsidiary company of the public corporations. So that's how the former government used the zero irregular jobs in the public sector in the previous government. And next slide, please. And then we had a presidential election in March this year, and the conservative government came back to power. And they haven't officially announced that this new government promotes privatization program in the public sector. However, when you look at the cabinet member of his government, there are many, people designated by the president have been in promoting of privatization in the past times. So we can assume, that this government would promote privatization program more aggressively than, previous governments. Also, last month, this new government, they announced to sell out some of the government share in the Incheon International Airport Corporation, which is public corporation, 100% ownership of, the government. But the government announced that, they're going to sell out some portion of public government share. And also, according to this new government's key task force press release, it seems that this new government would continue to promote privatization, which haven't completed during the previous government, such as healthcare and energy and other public services. So like we kind of learned that from our experience. Every government in Korea are are privateers. So like Daniel said, their tactic or their campaign during the election, we did the same campaign for many years. But since we don't have many allies in the National Assembly and political party, we kind of failed to, so we are now reconsidering how we can work with, progressive political party during, local election or, presidential election. So anyway, so every government in Korea has been using myths that, the public sector is corrupted and inefficient and poorly managed whenever, the government try to attack, the public service in order to privatize. That's typical, thing in Korea. Next slide, please. So now I'm going to look at the trade union response. Like we have confederation in Korea, which the KCTU is the federation that the KPTU is affiliated to. It established in 1995, and during from 1994 to 1995, there was the first public sector strike happened to oppose, the government's plan for telecommunication privatization. Eventually, it was sold to private company. So now, the telecommunication sector is in private sector. But that was the first time we organized the general strike. In 1999, former union of the KPTU established, and 2002, we had second largest joint strike with railway workers and power plant workers and gas workers. That was the time the government tried to unbundle, energy so that options to sell out energy sector to private companies. So, and also the government's attempt to unbundle the railway services as well. So 2002, we organized second largest joint strike. And then 2013, we also organized general strike to oppose privatization of railways and gas. And though, thanks to the strikes happened in 2002 and 2013, we kind of made half success to stop privatization further. But still, from those attempts, the government was succeeded to privatize partial area of those public services. And from 2019 until now, we have been focusing on social service sector because those social care sector was led by private companies in Korea, like other countries. Almost 97% belong to the private sector in the social service sector in Korea. So from 2019, KPTU and CSOs organized coalition to put pressure on the central government and the local government to take those privatized or private-led social service sector back into public hands. As a result of the campaign, now we have 14 public social service agencies out of 17 local governments. So, but it's still 2 to 3% of social service provider. So we still have a lot of work to do, but we kind of made success one by one, I think. Anyway, from those experiences, KPTU KPTU expanded the concept of public sector more, to the broader term. Like KPTU used to organize only those workers from public corporations or public institutions, but as a result of aggressive privatization program in Korea, we are have more private sector workers who deliver public services. So we kind of we expanded our scope of work and our membership eligibility. So we have 50% of our members from public institutions and public corporations, and the other 50% from private sector who is delivering public services. So, and like in the entire privatization struggle, KPTU have been focusing on the issues of lower of public service quality and employment. That was the two issues we have been focusing on. We try to balance between two main issues in the course of anti-privatization struggle. Next page, please. Next slide, yes. So these are ongoing campaigns that KPTU is doing. In the local public services, we have two regional branches delivering waste management service in the local government level. They are in the negotiation with the local their company, and those two branches have been demanding to the local government to municipalize, those contracting out waste management services. So, and social care, as I explained before, we need to do more work regarding, to make transformation from private-led, social service to public-led social service. So we work together with CSOs to establish more public agencies in local government level. And in the urban transport, Seoul Metro Line 9 is one of the well-known municipalization case in Korea, but we haven't fully succeeded yet. It's managed by Seoul Metro, which is public corporation, belong to local government, but still the Seoul Metro is only the one of outsourcing companies because of the contract with the French company who had made the very first investment in building Seoul Metro Line 9. When they had a contract with the Seoul Metropolitan Government, they had 30 years contract. So although those French investors, they're out, but still the Seoul Metropolitan Government, they had to, abide by those 30 years contract. So Seoul Metro, the public corporation, is the, one who operate the Seoul Metro Line 9 service, but they're still one of the contracting out companies. But the employment status of workers in the Seoul Metro Line 9, they used to be irregular workers in the private company, but now they have direct employment status with the Seoul Metro, the public corporation. And Yongin Light Rail, in Korea, many local governments, when they build light rail service, most of the governments, they do PPP, public-private partnership. So they have lots of private investment in building and operating light rail services. As a result of that, a resident who used those light rail services, they had to pay, $2, 20 cents more than, other residents who don't live there. So Yongin Right Rail branch, they brought municipalization issue during the negotiation with the company, the private company, and with the government. So they are still they are in sit-in strike, and they do various campaigns with local the local residents organization, grassroots organization, to make the government remunicipalize the light rail services. Transit bus and town shuttle buses, we have 13 cases of municipalization of transit bus service in Korea. Unfortunately, we are minor union in the transit bus sector. So those remunicipalization is not a result of KPTU's struggle. It's only done based on, the local governor's will. But still, we are fighting for municipalization, the transit bus service. Also, we have some ongoing campaign in the National Health Insurance Service and railway service and energy sector. Also, the government is using renewable energies to bring private companies in the public led energy services. Next slide, please. So as I explained before, this new government, seem to promote privatization program as other governments did. So we are from last month, we started educating our members with the changed political circumstances and union response. And we also organize different meetings with affiliates that are likely to be affected by the government's privatization policy, such as social insurance and public pension, energy, healthcare, and so on. And also from next week, we are going to hold a series of panel discussion on this new government's privatization policy. We will do analysis and we will look at some overseas case studies and we'll make some policy proposal and so on. So for next steps, we are thinking about to establish coalition with different public sector affiliates and civil society organization to have more collective power fighting against this government privatization policy. And also we plan to explore a possibility of enacting a law to prohibit privatization or marketization of public service and to promote remunicipalization of already privatized public services. So these are what we are doing now. So if you have any questions, then I will be happy to answer if I know the answer. Thank you.